So through this season of primaries, there have been a number of different issues that have cropped up. Issues in terms of parties getting involved where they shouldn't be, issues in terms of the actual vote being counted in some cases. But we've got a case of some of the most interesting issues cropping up really in the week in advance of the election that I've seen before. And we're joined by one of the candidates in this race to discuss it. This is a Broward Commission candidate, Ryan Ross. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your show.
Oh, it's great to have you here. So I want you to help us walk through this issue. So you have asked the court to move the election that is taking place today to November because of issues in terms of who was allowed to be involved in the election, which actually changes who can vote in the election. But it looks like the election is going to continue to take place today. So what was that process like? What do you think might actually happen if you're successful?
We're pretty confident that the courts will rule in our favor that this fake write-in candidate is only in this race as a means to disenfranchise 50% of the electorate in our district. Unfortunately, this is how the election laws have been used by elected officials in the state of Florida. And we have a unique case here where there have been a number of attempts previously to have write-ins dismissed. But because of the way that the law is written and the way the courts have upheld it, it's been very difficult. So we have a unique case where the write-in candidate actually perjured himself, or so we think, by indicating that he is a member of the write-in party and not a member of whichever party he's affiliated with, in this case, the Democratic Party.
So, you've alluded to this candidate. So who is this quote unquote write-in party candidate, and how is this changing who is allowed to vote in your election?
The name of the candidate is Antoine Levette, and I've had a number of conversations with him. I've called and asked specifically for him to withdraw from the race. He has attended no functions. He's raised no money. He's campaigned at no events. He's established no social media presence. This is not uncommon. But unfortunately, the way it works is in South Florida, at least, where Democrats have a really strong hold on government, is an elected official will use a write-in candidate to then disallow all non-Democrats from participating in that election where there is not a general election. So our election today, where they're voting right now, closes at 7. Would be the end of it if everyone was allowed to vote. But because of the write-in candidate, unfortunately, it closes it to only Democrats. And then in this case, 50% of the electorate, which is Republicans, independents, and others, will not get to participate. And then the write-in candidate withdraws from the race about a day after the primary, so there is no general election. And the winner of this primary becomes the winner of the race itself.
Well, that is, I think, to everyone watching this, that's objectively a very bizarre outcome that we have here. Is it your view that this is, the reason that this is allowed to continue is that it generally is, I guess, done to take votes away potentially from, a candidate like you who's progressive, who's not, one of the established candidates? Because in this case, obviously, there is another establishment candidate there. Is this intentionally allowed to produce that sort of outcome?
Absolutely. The purpose of this loophole, or at least as elected officials use it, is designed to protect incumbency and to protect the establishment elected official. In this race, there's only my opponent, who is one of the highest elected officials in Broward County, and myself. But for this write-in candidate, all voters would have been eligible to vote. But regrettably, they use this loophole to ensure that only pockets of the electorate get to participate in an election. So our action is less about, a means to win this election. For me, it's just about protecting and safeguarding the, democratic process that we have here. And regrettably, whether it's Republicans and independents being disenfranchised in South Florida, or, Democrats being disenfranchised in North Florida, independents across Florida don't get to participate in the highest elected offices in their county. And we find this to be a despicable practice. We've been calling attention to it for 2 years. We knew it would come. And we were just grateful to have an opportunity to challenge this in the courts. because we think that this raises the awareness of really how bad our election laws are in Florida. I understand people have what they believe to be legitimate concerns about the open primary question, but voters have decided this question in 1998 in Florida, and it's only been through the use of state advisory opinions and the courts that elected officials have been able to circumvent the will of the voters who have said, if it's only a primary, we want everybody participating because there is no general. And so this is really just a disastrous way to run an election and to encourage voter participation. We keep saying in our race, whether we lose by a landslide or win by a vote, we're going to continue this court case despite the results of tonight. So if I win tonight against probably all better judgment, where I could just accept that win and not risk losing in November, we're going to keep fighting because we want to make sure we say to every voter, your voice matters and your vote counts regardless of party affiliation.
I'm glad especially that you brought this up, because earlier in the program we were talking about the North Carolina gerrymandering decision that came out this weekend. And in that decision, we read a quote from U.S. Circuit Judge Jim Wynn that said the U.S. Constitution does not allow elected officials to enact laws that distort the marketplace of political ideas so as to intentionally favor certain political beliefs, parties, or candidates. And here you have a great example of one that, absent your lawsuit, would probably fly under the radar for the vast majority of voters and effectively amounts to perfectly legal voter suppression.
Absolutely. That is exactly what this is about. This is a means to suppress the vote and disenfranchise voters. Yeah. What we need to do is really look hard at these laws and start to elect legislators who care about the types of things we're doing in our elections. We have independents who are outpacing both Republicans and Democrats in their registrations. And if we have laws specifically designed to exclude them from the vote, and obviously in this case it's Republicans as well and other minor party affiliations, we would have a situation or a system that really, is probably one of the most unfair, unjust election processes in a democratic country.
Yeah. So look, obviously the court case, extremely interesting, and we're going to want to see how it plays out regardless of whether you win today or not. But you're a candidate for office, and so I want to ask you, we have a bit of an idea, I think, at this point of what a strong progressive represents potentially in Congress or even in the White House. At the county commission level, what can a strong progressive accomplish? What would your goal be in office?
We're really running on values here, and we want to give voters a reason to vote. So we sort of said we're going to concern ourselves with justice and charity and apply those to every issue. So we have a for-profit prison in my district. We have, homelessness and affordable housing crisis that has really gotten out of hand, and it has been ignored for too long, with such small efforts being done at both the municipal level and the county level. So one of the things we want to do is go ahead and say, we're going to fight with our legislators to make sure that there's pressure on them to close these for-profit prisons. And another big area is we're going to look at education. My background's in education. And so I've kind of said the county commissioners are making $100,000 salaries. They're working less than 20 meetings a year, and they don't work in the summers. This is a part-time job, 5 hours a month in a regular meeting. And so I'm donating 50% of my commissioner's salary, which amounts to about $50,000 every year, to secure tuition-free college and trade school for every student that comes out of Broward County. And we think that's going to be sort of, we hope that that's going to be something that really kind of sets the example and the pace for the rest of Florida to get behind this issue of supporting our young people and saying, we want to make sure you have an economic future. And when you enter into high school, you're going to know that there's trade school or there's college waiting for you, and you're not going to have crippling education debt that carries with you all throughout your life.
Well, Broward Commission candidate Ryan Ross, thank you for joining the show. Obviously, good luck in your ongoing legal battle.
Thank you so much for having me.
To hear even more about both this topic and other issues not being covered nearly enough by the mainstream media, you're going to want to tune in every morning to our full hour-long show. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, available on the TYT Network channel on YouTube TV.